What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Have a bunch of stuff to get into today. First, though, if you haven't already checked it out, did a bunch of stuff on the channel over the weekend. We checked out the Labo kit, specifically the piano. We put that together and everything. So if you're still kind of on the fence about how it all goes together and if it's worth checking out, I would check that video out. Had a lot of fun on the Spawncast. And then we took a look at a game that after 26 years finally is releasing on the Nintendo Switch with all the controversy kind of covered. So it was a lot of fun to do that, but today we gotta go over a few things. One, we gotta talk about Valve finally publishing a game apparently on the Nintendo Switch, but that came more so of them actually buying, well, an indie studio you may know about since they put out a game that a lot of people liked and played. Then we also have to go over Wolfenstein 2 needing a download, some sales in the UK that show us God of War, and we may be seeing Crackdown 3 possibly sooner than you think. So today, guys, let's get started. So Valve has technically become a developer publisher, publisher for Nintendo systems almost by default through ownership. So what happened over the weekend? Well, Valve bought Campo Santo. It's an indie developing studio that created Firewatch. Most people know about Firewatch. They played it. It was critically acclaimed. It wasn't everyone's game, as some people found it kind of boring, but looking at it as an indie developed game that a studio pretty small made, it was pretty impressive. And of course, now they're working on In the Valley of the Gods. Well, Valve made an acquisition over the weekend and they did buy this studio. If you remember, Valve said they're still in the business of making games. So you can take that a couple ways. You can take that as, oh, they're going to develop games internally, or they're going to start buying studios just to kind of add to their ability to create games. It seemed like Campo Santo was on their radar, and they made that purchase. Now, Campo Santo they seemed fine with it, even saying so much as Valve is really going to help us get to where we want to be. I mean, think about it. You go from being an indie developing studio that definitely runs on a budget to Valve, who has much deeper pockets, we'll say that, kind of backing them. They even say they're going to work with like-minded people alongside Valve when they work on In the Valley of the Gods. And of course, they are porting Firewatch to the Nintendo Switch. So now that Valve technically owns Campo Santo and Firewatch is coming to the Switch, technically Valve is putting money in and publishing, I guess in this case, Firewatch on the Nintendo Switch. So I don't think Valve has ever put anything on a Nintendo platform. So again, I guess this generation with the Switch brings something else new, if not by default of them buying Campo Santo. Now, I'm also curious as to what else they have in mind for this studio. Usually when you buy a studio, it's not because technically of what they may have been developing now, more so of what plans you have in the future. So I want to see if maybe Valve pulls them in to help them with an idea they have internally, and they're going to help, finish up the port of Firewatch to the Switch and In the Valley of the Gods, and then work on something that they want to do. Who knows? Valve is definitely working on some VR games now. They're working on Artifact, and we'll see what else they have apparently. Next up, let's quickly talk about Bethesda and the Nintendo Switch, because there have been a lot of people speculating that Bethesda was not happy with sales. There are a lot of people who kind of say that around the internet. Doom didn't sell well enough, Skyrim didn't sell well enough, Bethesda's not happy. Well, it looks like they are happy actually with the sales. Pete Hines actually talked with Game Reactor over the PAX weekend that took place, PAX East, and it sounds like they're perfectly fine. In fact, he says they're very happy with the sales, and it comes down to them moving games to the Switch if it's able to do it, technically. They even says it's not technically a one-to-one comparison. Consider what the Switch is compared to the other systems. It's much different. It's a hybrid, so you have to technically take it and say, okay, I'm going to program in handheld mode. What drawbacks, cutbacks do I have to make for that? As we see with some games, draw distance will shrink, animations will get simpler. Things like that will happen when you go into handheld mode, and then what do I get at docked mode? Basically, Bethesda is saying if the Switch can handle a game and we have the development time to do it, we'll put that game on the Switch. Now, their current id Tech engine runs on the Switch. It's going to come down more so to when the next id Tech engine comes around, will the Switch support it? If not, they'll have to figure something out, right? Because they could take older games and continue to port them. The Evil Within, I think, is next up, and that could see a port as early as being revealed at E3 even, because we are, I think, to that point where Bethesda is moving a lot of their current generation games that are older over to the Switch. It's going to get more interesting when things like the next generation consoles start getting teased, right? With the PS5 and the Xbox 2, and Bethesda starts trying to push that envelope. Will the Switch still be able to run those games and handle it? That is the thing that will make this whole situation very interesting, very telling on Bethesda's part, if they are with Nintendo to stay, or if they're kind of jumped on the Switch hype wagon now and kind of putting stuff there. So it's going to be a little bit of time. I don't know if some of the games they're going to announce at E3 are going to be on the Switch. It's going to be weird. E3 is going to be extremely telling, so we'll have to see. But if Doom 2 gets announced and it's their latest id Tech engine, I do expect that Switch logo to actually pop up next to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So that'll be the biggest thing, is if they do announce that one game, Doom 2, for all systems, that'll tell you Bethesda is absolutely on board with what Nintendo's doing right now. Also, real quick, while we're on the topic of Bethesda and Nintendo, Wolfenstein 2 had some box art dropped on Amazon, and it has probably one of the ugliest parts about some of these Switch cases, and that is at the top for the physical release, it warns you about the necessity of a download. So you will have to download some stuff from the internet, much like what we did with LA Noire. This is very different, keep this in mind, from Doom, where the entire single player was on the cartridge and the multiplayer was separate. Makes sense. If you're going to play multiplayer, you have online, right? That's a thing. Not with Wolfenstein 2. Wolfenstein 2 is a strictly a single player only game. So you're going to buy the cartridge, but you still need to download information. It seems like really the largest most companies are willing to go with is a 16 gigabyte card. Bethesda's already done that with Doom. They're probably going to try to maybe even use a 16 gigabyte card with Wolfenstein, although, I mean, why not just use an 8 gig and have us download 20-something gigs? I'm also going to be curious to see how large this download file is, considering this game is over 45 gigabytes on the PS4, the Xbox One, much higher than that with patches and everything, the PC. So, yeah, let's see how small they can get this file size, because if they do use 16 gigabytes and you need another 20 to download, that's a shame, is what I'm going to say. I really don't like these downloads of physical games, because you might as well just buy it digitally. I don't even know why I'd buy it physically if I still need to download more than half the game. But we'll keep an eye out to see how much space we need to save on our memory card, despite having the cartridge in the slot. I guess at this point I'd be getting Wolfenstein 2 digitally. Next up, let's talk about the currently missing in action Crackdown 3. We kind of know about Crackdown 3 to an extent. I say kind of because there's a very good chance that Microsoft has changed it heavily behind the scenes, and I think they really have done that. I think when we see Crackdown 3, which will be at E3 at this point, we all know that, and some of the stuff we're about to go over here just proves that further. It even might tell us a release date is closer than we think as well. More than likely, they have changed up a lot about this. I still think they're using the cloud or some kind of server compute process for the online multiplayer, not so much the single player. But things like visuals, for example, gameplay styles, just the look of the game, how it's played, could have all changed, and that might be why we haven't seen or really heard anything about it. But a little bit of information has now come out. It was rated in Brazil, as you'll see here, and it got the rating that we all kind of figured it would get, basically a mature rating. It's a 16 and up in Brazil. I'm sure it'll be, M for mature, 17 plus in the US and everything where I am. So now we know it's been rated. Usually games get rated when all of the content is out on the table so that they can rate it, right? They have to look through the game and make sure there's nothing hidden, little things that they have to write on the back where they tell you what's in it and everything for the parental guides on the back. So it's getting rated, which tells us it's far enough along to where they can do that, which means it's gotta be close to going gold. And when we hear about it going gold, that means that it's coming out pretty quickly. Because here's the thing about Microsoft, and this has led people to really start to think about, could this be, and I want you guys to tell me about this in the comments and let me know if this is the thing that you think could happen. What if we get to E3 and Microsoft goes, here's Crackdown 3, here's how it plays, these are the features, oh, and it's out on Game Pass right now. Do you guys think that's a possibility, as Microsoft doesn't care as much about first-party sales now that Game Pass is a thing? They'd rather you sign up for the subscription service. There would be a mad scramble for the subscription service, especially if they said you can get it a week early on Game Pass. It'll be in stores next week. I want to know what you guys think about that, because that would be a really good way to essentially drop the microphone, right, at E3. Oh, you haven't heard about Crackdown 3 this whole time? Guess what? It's out now. Go get it. That would be pretty cool to see, but otherwise, I would actually see Crackdown 3 as maybe an October release. Maybe they try to get in early October before Red Dead comes out a couple weeks in. Again, they don't care about the first-party sales as much as they used to with Game Pass, so they could get away with not as many sales at retail as usual and just get people to sign up for Game Pass. Next up, let's talk about our first look at sales for God of War. It's kind of what we expected, a bit at least. These are charts from the UK. You're going to see those charts here. God of War has debuted at number 1, as most of us would expect. Number 3 is very interesting, by the way. We'll go over that too. But number 1 being God of War, that has sold 35% more than God of War 3 at physical retail. That is a big deal. God of War 3 sold pretty well actually in the UK, but God of War that has now come out is by far the fastest selling God of War that we have seen so far, according to several different charts and trackers. This looks to be it right here. This looks to be seriously, the biggest God of War that we will probably see when it comes to sales figures all around the world. And I'm actually really excited to see what we get from Sony, because there is a good chance Sony will release some kind of PR around God of War, whether it sold so many millions of copies in the first month or something. They'll definitely say something about God of War, and I'm pretty excited to hear about that, because I think this is one of the best games of the generation, and it's very exciting to see that it's sold well. Number 2, Far Cry 5. It was at number 1 for the past 3 weeks. God of War just knocked it off. Number 3, look at this. Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. That is impressive. That's, I think at this point, from what I've seen, I looked at Kiwami, I believe this is the highest Yakuza 6 has debuted in the UK, which is very impressive for what some see as kind of a niche title. Yakuza 6 number 3 is very cool. I think it just gives more life to the series. We can see what else they can do with it. FIFA 18 is down there at number 4. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, number 5. Mario Odyssey 6, Fallout 4. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Grand Theft Auto 5, which it won't leave the top 10, is number 10. Now, other than that, Sea of Thieves did fall down to number 11, so it is now out of the top 10. I don't really expect it to climb back into the top 10 with it on Game Pass, because Game Pass is kind of their long-term solution. Like, maybe somebody wouldn't buy Sea of Thieves at retail a year from now, but they would download it on Game Pass. That makes more sense. So I would expect Sea of Thieves to just continue to drop off. Far Cry 5, still up there at number 2, is very impressive, although it will also probably see that slow decline on the UK sales charts. We'll also take a look at Media Crate, which is coming up. God of War is going to be fascinating on Media Crate, by the way. It's never really been a big seller in Japan, but this one is so much different than the other God of Wars. I think it actually has a decent chance on Media Crates, and that'll be a lot of fun to see if it spikes PS4 sales, because maybe people really want to play it, and just overall, if it can crack 100,000, 150,000 units, that would actually be an accomplishment for that series. And our last bit of news, guys, let's talk about something pretty cool, okay? Now, we've talked about Labo, right? We kind of talked about, the giant robot, the piano, the fishing rod, all that stuff. But remember how we talked about the Toy-Con Garage a while ago? Remember I said, oh, this is pretty neat. You can actually program stuff using pretty basic if-then statements, and you can kind of create different things in essentially programming for the Labo, and it looks like people have not only decided to do that, but they are doing some awesome stuff inside. Really, let me just show you, for example, okay? Check this out. Somebody, for example, built a working clock. That's right. Somebody built a working clock out of Labo. That is from Twitter, Riceball0712. There's another one where somebody made an animated face, which is crazy. There's just some awesome stuff. A lock-picking game, rhythm games. It is absolutely insane, some of the stuff people are doing with Labo right now when it comes to actually designing and programming and creating. Trust me, I've seen all the stuff that people retweet on Twitter for the piano, where people are like actually composing and creating entire musical scores and songs on the Labo's piano, but I think this is probably the coolest thing so far out of Labo, is the Toy-Con Garage and people actually designing pretty basic programs, I would say. It's nothing fancy or anything yet. That's the thing, yet. Wait till you see. I'm sure when people get more and more time with this, we could maybe see like full games. Like, I'm not full games, but think about with like the TI-83, if people were programming like Mario was on there. I remember playing that. Think of stuff like that. Like, I could obviously see that happening. It's almost like it's true basic, essentially, is what's going on here. So it'd be pretty cool to see, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it, because people are very creative online, and Labo seems to kind of let you do what you want. So I mean, seriously, we could see some crazy stuff, and we'll see where Labo goes from here, because maybe they expand on that Toy-Con garage and give people more tools when it comes to programming and stuff. This could be really neat. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Toy-Con garage. Maybe you're surprised at some of the stuff people are able to do with what was essentially cardboard in a box with some cool little instructions, to now they are doing full-on musical scores of the piano or programming digital faces and clocks with the very basic but pretty cool programming tools that are given to you with the Toy-Con garage. Also, let me think about things like Valve actually publishing a game on the Nintendo platform. That was a little weird to see, a little odd. That Campo Santo purchase, by the way, came out of nowhere. Like, people were really caught off guard by that, but I guess if it helps them with their games get to the finish line and they can kind of work a bit more ease of mind, I should say, because you have a big company like Valve really funding and helping rather than just trying to fund yourself and struggling at times, that might be good for them, right? And also, I think about Bethesda being happy with the sales and interested in keeping the Switch up to date with games, if it can support it. Do you think it'll be a problem if the next generation systems are announced and, well, Bethesda takes advantage and creates a whole new id Tech engine that Switch cannot run? Will that be a problem? Would Bethesda then leave? Or would they collaborate with Nintendo for something new? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.